Daniel, we're here.
Hello, Adam. How are you?
Good, how are you?
You know who's not here? The Varsity Blues.
No, they're not. Oh, wait, no, well, they're not here in the Zoom call, but they are
No.
playing today, aren't they? And that's why Alex is not here. Company man, top
Yes.
man.
U Sports playoffs.
Man, yeah, is it better than the CHL? I'll let you decide.
Okay.
Okay, ratio on Twitter. Anyway, Daniel, the NHL trade deadline has passed. The deadline day itself was very quiet. I think it was headlined by Jordan Greenway.
Mhm.
Besides that, though, the week leading up was probably one of the best periods of trades we've ever seen.
Yeah. I still am loving all of the comparisons when everyone said all of the GMs decided to play NHL 23 before heading into negotiations because the trades were coming in like crazy.
It was enjoyable. You gotta wonder if starting to be a shift in what they value with first round picks, or at least I hope so.
The NBA
Because
mentality.
man, why not? It'd be bonkers. I mean, the value is obviously very different, but I think that'd be fun. So it's gonna basically be all trade stuff today. And then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programs Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, Daniel, trade deadline. We're gonna go through our winners and our losers first. Now, I did ask Alex to text me his, but I'm gonna ask you for yours first in case you overlap because he sent me a few. Just in case. Well, he had a difficult time narrowing them down. So first off, we'll start with the winners and be positive here. Who is your one winner of the NHL trade deadline?
Oh. Um, it's a tough one, but I'm gonna say New York
I'm
Rangers.
assuming. Okay, good, good, good. I was
The
hoping
New
you
York
got the
Rangers,
Rangers.
because
Yeah.
I think they added the guys they were targeting. They already had a great team in place that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. You know, a bit of Igor Shesterkin not being the dominant guy on a recent stretch, but they were confident with what they had and they added the right guys. So I think they're the winners.
I think that's very fair. I'll pick one. Well, Alex had two, and you basically went out there and said one. You said one of his, but you did have the Rangers. He also put Boston, and he said they added another top 40 to already one of the stronger Ds in the league, adding freaking Tyler Bertuzzi. Very good to say. And the perfect bottom six Bruin and Garnet Hathaway. When that team is healthy, it will be extremely hard to beat. Also, we should probably mention they extend David Pastrnak to a $90 million deal, 8 years. Makes him one of the highest paid players in the league. That's Alex's point of view. You have yours. My winner. I listed some extras just in case. You guys did sort of take the top two, but I will say this. I do very much like the fact that New Jersey went out and got the best player available without giving up a top prospect. So they're an honorable mention here because my top team at this deadline is a seller, and that is the Nashville Predators. Tanner Genoa, great return. Matthias Ekholm, great return. Maybe criticize the fact that it looks like one of their retaining slots is only 4% for Ekholm because it sounds like a lot of has been said about retention slots the last week.
Yeah.
So maybe that's bigger going forward. But the return was great. Not giving up any, sorry, no, not retaining any salary in the Granlund deal. What I really like is they're building up draft capital. And again, right now, as we mentioned last week, David Poy was clearing the deck for Barry Trotz coming in, and it's a very clean sort of way. They do re-sign Dante Fabro. I wonder maybe they didn't love the interest that was out there because Merrick did say on Saturday before the deadline that he was going to be moved. But I really like from a seller's point of view what Nashville did this deadline. Thought they were
Yeah,
really, really good.
I could see that too. It's we said it was inevitable that they had to do this. They couldn't extend the window any further, and I like that they are able to finally say it's not working out with these contracts. It's not working out of just squeezing in and hoping for something of a semblance of doing well in the first round. So good on them. And the fact that they're able to kind of okay, this was the one thing I really did like with them bringing back Barry Trotz is that usually when it comes to rebuilds, you'll have new management come in, a new leader come in and try to translate to like this is what we're trying to build to the fan base, and it doesn't always work like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, and I'm thinking now you bring in a familiar guy that I think the fan base can trust to say, okay, Barry, we understand your vision. We understand you're just not gonna like rip it all apart and just hope for high draft picks. We know what you're doing.
Mhm. All right, Daniel, your biggest loser of the deadline.
I'm gonna say it is the Ducks. And I know it's
Really?
funny to say that because they're a team that they still have a lot of contracts. I just don't think they read the market very well. I don't think they took a loss on anything. It just they didn't take advantage of what they had and what they could have done. I think that they held on too long to John Klingberg. Um, I think the Dmitry Kulikov one, you get a draft pick out of it, but doesn't really move anything. You didn't ask your high price guys that have retained a lot more value this year
Hmm.
to think about, waiving your no trade clause. So I'm thinking of an Adam Henrique, a Jakob Silverberg. These guys kind of rebuilt their value in some sense, and you didn't explore the market for that. I
Hmm.
know Henrique got injured the day after the deadline.
Yeah. So, and I wonder if the NHL's note about maybe here being careful about trading possibly injured players at one point, because obviously he was one of the names mentioned that could have been a problem. But it's mentioned you. It's funny you mentioned Henrique too, because I really thought Colorado were going to go out and maybe get him if Monahan didn't work out, which obviously we know that they didn't do any of that. They got Lars Eller. I'll go to Alex's losers first. I have um I have five losers on mine, so
Wow. Okay.
we have options. So Alex said Carolina and San Jose. For Carolina, said made some good moves in Jesse Harvey and Shane Gostisbehere. He doesn't think that they got the pure score they needed with Pacioretty going down. Maybe it's not quote their year. That could be valid. I still don't think they had a great deadline from them, though. He did say before the Harvey trade, or after when the Harvey trade happened, that he needed to do more. So I agree with Alex there. And then he said San Jose coding didn't like not getting a top prospect in the overall return for Timo Meyer. We knew Carlson was going to get dealt, or it was going to be hard for him to get dealt, but he felt overall they had an uneventful deadline, which I actually very much agree with. Okay, I had a hard time saying my distinct overall loser because I think there are some pretty bad ones. Like you could say, well, I did have Carolina, but like you get to take that out now. You could say it's Vancouver because they are very strange, and we will get to them.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I'm just trying to remember. Did I say the Hronik trade? I'm gonna write it down quickly and so I remember that we get to it. But the Hronik trade happened, right? Now you
You had it
also
already there. Yeah.
yeah, okay, I did. Okay. Then you could say obviously Arizona because they're not paying people to play for them, which is very embarrassing. You could say Pittsburgh because
Yeah, I was
well,
leaning
we
more
we will
to
get to
that.
Pittsburgh. We will get to Pittsburgh. However, my biggest loser of this trade deadline, it's Colorado. So we know that the one thing that has really been a sore spot in Colorado this year has been, beside the injuries, has been that second line center position where they no longer have Nazem Kadri, and they went out and got Lars Eller. Now, I love Lars Eller. Love
Hmm.
him, love him, love
You
him.
have his jersey.
I do. He was my first Habs jersey when with the name on. Obviously, growing up, I had other ones, but they were blank. My first Habs jersey with the name was Lars Eller 81. Love him. Him and Lehkonen on in the same team is just like one of them is going to score a cup winning goal. I'll be wrong, but this is my thing is just the two the Scandinavians in my heart. I love them. Now, no offense to Lars Eller, but that is not Nazem Kadri. Offensively too, Lars Eller has been how do I say it, non-factor almost this year for Washington. I think what was the second in like 2025 or something.
Yeah.
Um, I just I think everyone before the deadline looked at Colorado. There's still a bit of the Cup champs. You respect them. No one wants to play that core, but I have a hard time seeing them with the addition of Lars Eller. No offense, and hey, Jack Johnson's back, boys. Here we go. Sound the siren here. I just don't think they did enough to get back to contender status. I don't think they're anywhere. I don't think they were a favorite in the West anymore. Like again, that core will get you far. I just don't think if they can get out the West. Like you don't have like I don't see them being able to get past now Edmonton. Vegas maybe. It just I don't know how that goaltending's gonna look. But I just don't see them beating a Boston. I don't see them beating a Toronto, even Carolina. I don't think the Avs did enough to get back to championship status.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you brought up Lars Eller of not filling his role because I remember, well, no, this before I met you, but this was a conversation I did have when I was watching the 2016 draft and he was traded. Um,
Saddest
when
day of my life.
and everyone was talking about will he finally fulfill that potential Montreal's been talking about of being a second line center. And then we have this conversation years later of okay, where's he gonna fit in? He's not a Nazem Kadri. He played his role as it is, and I don't think you could expect much more with him. Maybe Joe Sakic is thinking of this as what we talked about with Carolina. This is not their year. It's maybe a reset year. Wait for the core guys to come back 100%, and then we'll add later on. Maybe this is just another deal to show that we're still competitive, but not necessarily gonna empty out the coffers like we did before, or go out and get the big guy because he not that he's not confident with the team. It just he just understands its limitations with the injuries.
Um, don't forget, it's not just him. It's Chris McFarland
Okay.
is GM now.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
forgets that, but
Yeah, it's
but
like the
he's
Raptors thing.
obviously
Like Masai's not the GM, he's the president.
exactly. But we
Yeah.
know there's obviously big say. Like yeah, but just a little
Yeah.
reminder for everyone that it's McFarland as GM, but obviously Joe Sakic is still gonna have say. Like obviously when he was GM, I'm sure McFarland had a lot to say. Then that's what you do nowadays. You have a team. You have a team. I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins now, Daniel. Okay, you know that I will never count out Sidney Crosby, right?
Just the rest of the guys we would.
I am now going to count out the rest of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, here's the problem I have here, Daniel, is last offseason, you and I were in Montreal for the draft. In fact, you and I were in the line to get into Schwartz, getting our
Mhm.
smoked meat, when it was announced that the Pittsburgh Penguins. Do you remember what the announcement was?
Um.
It was a re-sign.
Oh, Chris Letang.
Yeah, Chris Letang got his extension. We know Brian Russ got his big extension. Been a bit disappointing this year.
Had him in
Let, let,
fantasy. Yes.
yeah. I have Chris Letang in fantasy. Now he has had some. God, what a tough year Chris Letang has had. Injuries, death of his father, like a stroke in there, his second stroke. Like Chris Letang, God bless him, has so much happened to him. But Brian Russ hasn't been great. Their third line we've talked about was just a non-factor. Um, but what the point I'm trying to make here is when the Penguins made those moves, and I'm not the only one who has made this point and will continue to make this point. Those line up a lot with Sidney Crosby's remaining time in the NHL. When you have Sidney Crosby, you go for it every goddamn year. The problem I have with what the Penguins did at this deadline is I think they were gifted losing Kapanen on waivers the way they did. Then they go out against the Blues and they do a great performance. I thought this is it for Pittsburgh and they can go to the deadline. It turns out they weren't making a move for JT Miller. We were all like, okay, cool. However, the Pittsburgh Penguins went out and got older.
Yeah.
The moves they bring in, they bring the band back together with Nick Bonino. I wonder everyone remember what was the Nick Bonino goal, the famous one, Bonino. Was that
Yeah. Yeah.
17 or 16?
Oh, that's
Because
like
even if it's
yeah.
17, that's 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Dmitry Kulikov, who is the discount bucket of every trade deadline if you need a depth defenseman, and no salary retained, giving up a second term, declining Mikhail Granlund. I have no idea what Ron Hextall was thinking. But if there was a nail in the coffin that was going to be Penguins like competing seriously for a cup, it was this deadline. I cannot like express how disappointed I am with Pittsburgh's deadline.
Yeah. What I kind of felt with this is like, okay, the three guys they give, it's just they're quality guys now, but it doesn't do anything for your team. You just you spent more to s- keep the status quo. Like I'm thinking of a Mikael Grenland and a Jeff Carter extension. Like these types of contracts are the ones that are gonna really weigh you down. And the Benito Magic, it's not there anymore. Kulikov, I don't think that's gonna do anything
No.
for a team that was already struggling to give Ty Smith minutes. So I don't know what they're doing there. It's just this feeling of you're gonna just keep adding guys, hoping some type of magic is found here, but I just don't see it anymore. Maybe this would have made more sense if it was a younger core, because again, I'm not discounting Sidney Crosby or anything, but if there was just kind of more there, I would understand this. But I think that this just doesn't do it for me. Like it doesn't elevate anything. Like I know there were negotiations of maybe a Brock Besser type of trade. I would have liked that a lot more in terms of there's still that upside there. There's still of let's give him a new environment, see what he can do. I think with Granlund, we already knew what was going to happen. With Benino, we know what we're getting. With Kulikov, again, what you said, the bargain bottom pairing type of guy.
By the way, I just realized I put Hronik under the note I originally put Vancouver
Yeah, I was
acquire
seeing
Philip
that.
Hronik. Like, what's so frustrating, Daniel, is that again you mentioned I love how you mentioned Jeff Carter keeps you down. Is Granlund not is that going to be your sort of fix over Carter now? But again, he'll probably be as the decline is going towards where Jeff Carter is. Like you moved Kapanen. You ended up moving Brock McGinn, who wasn't performing. I saw Penguins fans saying you moved that money, and it's just like here's the thing with like acquiring a guy like Dmitry Kulikov. Listen, guy is in the top 1% of hockey players. He is better than I will ever be at anything in my life. The way he plays hockey, he is in the NHL. But eventually, there comes a time when you realize a guy keeps getting moved at the deadline. Why is he not being extended anywhere? you
Hmm.
know, and that was your guy. That was your defensive move. Dmitry Kulikov. Is that the guy? Is that the guy who was going to bring you everything you lost when you traded can't remember his name, to New Jersey?
John
Please help
Marino.
me. John Marino. Like that's the move? You mentioned Besser too. That money could have gone to Besser.
Yeah.
Like, guys, what are we doing here?
Was that the asking price too? A second?
I don't even know if ever came out what the question was. Did they want? Because here's what's annoying is even if Vancouver didn't retain on the deal, which it never sounded like they wanted to do. By the way, shout out the fact that Brock Besser is still a Canuck after the deadline. Instead of getting that cap it for Granlund, you could have done Besser and the young prospect like that. I shouldn't say prospect. That's God. No, he's been in the league for years now. I get he's got injury problems and that, but you're telling me you can't figure that out? If he's playing so well since they moved him back with Elias Pettersson, you telling me he can't do that with Malkin and Crosby? That's come on, guys. Just I don't know what they're doing anymore, man. I don't know what they're doing. Um, Kind of like the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, it's funny. We always talk about, oh, it's the GM, but then it's like some of these moves they're so reminiscent of Jim Benning.
And do you know who the one constant in all this has been? The Linden years.
Yeah.
Then stuff with Benning and now the J.R. Alvin. You know who's the one constant in all of this, Daniel?
Is it Francesco Aquilini?
Francesco Aquilini.
Yes.
Like it's the worst kept secret in the league. This is him. However, okay, listen. Ahem. The Vancouver Canucks. The deadline has passed, Daniel. Connor Garland is a Vancouver Canuck still. Brock Besser is a Vancouver Canuck still. JT Miller is not a Pittsburgh Penguin. Patrick Allvin said after the deadline they did not receive an offer for him, which, if you don't know how to speak GM, doesn't mean anything because there were definitely discussions, and we know that from all the reports out there. It did happen. They were discussions with him in Pittsburgh. We know there were. Didn't happen though. Apparently, in a possible JT Miller trade, there were first round picks on the table from Pittsburgh. Really, it was two of them. That's what the word is. If it's true, oh my god. Because apparently, what the Canucks want is a young centerman back instead of the picks. Now, all of this points towards, when we look at the Philip Pronik deal, where they give up draft capital, including the first round pick from the Brock Besser deal, sorry, the Bo Horvat deal, to acquire a young defenseman who has had a good year and a half now, really popping off. But nothing here points towards a rebuild, rather a retool, which has been what the Canucks have been trying to do for a decade now. And that points towards one thing, and that is there is clearly ownership meddling here. Because
Mhm.
insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result here. And nothing is changing in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's like when I looked at the Roenick, I was so confused of what they were trying to do that I thought they were going to be dumping salary and just try to figure it out in the off season, and then that deal really comes out of nowhere. I think it was a good indication of what Detroit kind of felt their chances were this year. But I think for the Canucks, it was like it's this feeling I felt how it was like, let's just try this one more time. We're not as bad as we say we are, or as we're showing. Let's add. And bad. That was bad. I remember this breaks me back to when they traded Ryan Kessler to the Ducks. And then I thought, okay, yeah, that kind of shows they're getting away from the Sedin era. It's time to rebuild. And then they trade Jared McCann, that pick they got in the Ryan Kessler trade, for Eric Gabranson. And
Man,
I don't understand.
that's an all timer that doesn't get talked about enough anymore. That was all time.
Yeah.
Like the trade is they give up the conditional pick in this year's draft. The second round pick is in this draft. This draft, this draft. Well, it's not like they're in a position to trade next year. You don't want to do that. But in this draft, why would you? The Islanders aren't for sure making it either, so that pick can go down in quality. Or sorry, I should go up in quality, lower in the draft order. Well, it's just nothing has changed there. Nothing is going on. It's like, we like how they've responded to the new coach. Guys, every team responds well to a new coach for so long. But if you're not changing the general way you're building the team, like at its core, we have looked at the Canucks for again a decade, and it's been roster construction. And again, they haven't moved anyone. They've brought in guys. I'm sure everyone has seen this going around on Twitter. They're over the cap next year. Their committed cap
Yeah.
hit is over the hit that is over the ceiling next year. Like, and I'm pretty sure. I want to double check this. I'm pretty sure. Who did they have on LTIR? Played in Carolina, went there, hasn't played for a couple years now. Tough
Michael
guy,
Furlan.
Michael Furlan. Yeah, I'm wondering even if his LTIR cap hit expires this year. I'm just gonna quickly try and find it. Michael Furlan, his contract is up at the end of this year, so they don't have that LTI relief anymore unless we just never know what's going to happen with Tanner Pearson, and he's going to be the new guy there because God, what's happening with him? Um, there's a lot going on there, Daniel. There's a lot going on.
You mentioned Bor Horvat. That's the biggest subtraction, and then Luke Shen gets traded, and then it's fun. It's like, okay, yeah, great. You're doing what you need to do to think about the future, and then try to correct the mistakes you had before, and then they just couldn't help themselves and get and trade assets for Philip Roenick.
it's just stop what you're doing, guys. Stop what you're doing. Okay, Boston. Also, man, Alex mentioned in his whatever we can call it, his
Yeah.
his, his call in stuff. Um, I got off the subway on Thursday.
Hmm.
I get out, I check my phone, and I see Alex. I won't repeat what he said, but he was not very happy that Tyler Petruzzi is now a Boston Bruin. Taylor Hall's on injury reserve. Foligno might be done for the season, which sort of helps, but another guy who just bleeds yellow and gold if you look at the way he plays.
It's funny. It's so I always find this funny with these types of players. Either they go to the Bruins like Tyler Bertuzzi, or he's a guy that you acquire to counter the Bruins.
Yes,
So it's just crazy that they were able to add this type of guy that he just fits the Bruins DNA so well.
like Trent Frederick isn't afraid to go after Alex Ovechkin, even if he's going to get slashed in the nuts. You know what I mean? Hathaway, Bertruzzi. It's just they're just killers. I hate it. The Bruins are. I really thought after Orlov they were done, and it was like, okay, we're good. We got our defenseman. We're living like Bertruzzi. Like I don't know how much more they are now officially. If you didn't see this, the fastest team to ever hit 100 points in the NHL. I,
Yeah.
what more can we say about this Bruins season? I think what they're on a 10-game winning streak again now. Like everything that can go right for the Bruins, we've said this before, we'll say it a few times probably as the season goes on now. Everything that can go well is going well for the Boston Bruins, and it's sickening.
Yeah. I think it was just perfect the way they were able to add. I don't think they overpaid on anything. They weaponized their draft picks to the fullest extent, and they get guys that, when I mentioned like the Bruins DNA, they're just the type of guys that I could really see them not just be these pure rentals. I could see them be these guys that kind of commit to the team long term. These guys that just fit already on what's been going on. Like Dmitry Orlov, like that type of start he's had with the Bruins is insane.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. I picked him up in fantasy, and it's just been like, yeah,
That's
very,
probably
very
one of
good.
the like that's an
Yeah, yeah,
amazing move.
yeah. If only Matt Murray could, get me some goalie wins. Oh, it's looking tough, Daniel.
It looked good for a while last night, and then
Yeah. Then
then
you allow some
happened.
shorthanded goals and the game's out of
Two of them,
reach.
two of them on the same penalty kill.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Oh God, kind of like the return for Jacob Chychrun. And again, like we glossed over it. Yeah, again, Pasternak resigns 8 years too. It's just like, of course it got
Of
done.
course he did. Yes,
Of course it got done. Just under $12 million. Quick thought. You like the deal?
I like it. I think it is at market value, but he didn't break the like he could have gone to free agency and explored like the 12 million range, but he stayed loyal.
I mean, he's one of the highest paid players ever. To be fair, I don't want to
Yeah,
hear anyone say this is a Bruin taking a discount because it isn't. It is not.
I think it's fair value.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, I love David
Yeah,
Pasternak. He's the top 10 player in the league. I don't think he
I
gets
think
talked about enough,
it's like my
which is stupid to say.
second Bruin I could tolerate.
Oh yeah, just him and Pat, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, people love Pat. God love Pat.
but I do
Um,
like Charlie McAvoy's game, but that's another story.
yeah, well, he's a good player, and they're half of them are on my fantasy team. Got like all the perfection. I have like the Bruins core minus their starting goaltender who you have and Bergeron who Alex has. I know when the Bruins are playing, I'm eating good in fantasy. It's a good time. Oh goodness gracious. Carolina, Alex mentioned in this thing. They get Shane Goss to spare for a
Mm,
third. Shout out them. But that was the second trade they made involving a defenseman. I'll see. I don't know if that was the first or second on the timeline. Anyway, no one cares. The big one, Daniel Centeno.
mhm.
They have finally traded Jacob Chychrun.
Yes, to a team that
And
we thought was out of it.
man, first off, I want to apologize to Pierre Dorian. He was patient. He's kept all his prospects, and Jacob Chychrun is an Ottawa Senator, and he is doing everything in his power to show that he loves being an Ottawa Senator. By the way, socials, playing, like Jacob Chychrun has done. It's a great start in Ottawa. Scored the other day. Grandpa
Mhm.
was there. It was looking. It was emotional. It was great stuff.
He's happy. He's
Yeah,
happy. He's playing. You know what I mean?
that's what
He's happy. He's
this
actually playing.
like that's what the Sens need. Happy. So they've been winning lately. Like it's just good for Ottawa. The Coyotes, however, oh, I have been waiting to talk about this. Jacob Chychrun has been in the trade discussions in the trade world, the trade block, whatever you want to call it, for more than a year. The Brent Burns return was what they wanted. Young prospects aplenty, with the picks as well. The big selling point, he has term. He's a great cap hit. A player
He's
who I
young.
said a couple years ago was better than Morgan Riley, should be on the Olympic team over Morgan Riley. I stand by that, by the way. This was the caliber of player. There was no player available like him with this term and this great a cap hit, this ability. They did not get a single prospect. They received a conditional first this year, a conditional second in 2024, and the 2026 second rounder. The 2023 first round pick is top five protected. If the conditions are met, it becomes a 2024 pick. Should Ottawa reach the Eastern Conference Finals this year, the second becomes a first in 2024, and that pick would be top 10 protected. If the condition is met, the pick becomes a 2025 first round unprotected. They're not going to make the conference finals. They're not making the conference finals this year. Then again, Ottawa do have a bit of magic to them. but they won't really care if they give up that pick because they have their young core. Doesn't matter. Yeah, they need a goalie, but we can talk about maybe it's anyway. We can talk about it another time.
Mm-hmm.
I Daniel, I just want
I
all
don't know.
of that,
Yeah,
and they didn't get a single prospect, a first and 2 seconds.
it's very anticlimactic because I think we built this up so much to say like what would the ideal package be, and it's funny when we were looking about like scenarios of other teams of what was going to be given up, we just overshot it, and then this is what happens. Maybe this is what the Coyotes did too. Like, did they wait too long for this? I think they did.
So here's what's really funny to me, Daniel. If we go and get Arizona's cap friendly up very quickly, I've been waiting for it. I've been stewing on this for a while. This is what we know. I mentioned for a very specific reason that the Coyotes wanted the value of Chychrun because of his contract situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, this basically came from Doug Armstrong's mouth. I'm going to paraphrase here. A big reason why the deal got done with Ottawa, specifically, is because in that trade, the Coyotes would not have to retain any money on one of the best value contracts we've ever seen available at the deadline. Now, Daniel, I want to quickly read you some stuff on Cap Friendly. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just quickly look at something here. They currently are paying retained wise $1 million, just under 990,000. They are paying Oliver Ekman-Larsson not to play for them. 2.6 of their cap it was involved in the Patrick Kane deal and the Bukestad deal, but those are okay. Those are fine, right? Those are, they moved the OEL contracts, so they don't have to pay them. And the K or nearly as much as obviously the Vancouver Canucks are going to. And the Kane and Bukestad deal got them assets. That's not bad. This is where I get a little mad. They have the Brian Little contract, do not forget, Daniel. Okay. The cap hit of that is $5.2 million for this year and next. For the rest of this year, Andrew Ladd just got hurt, I'm pretty sure. But let's be honest, they took that deal not because he's a good player, because unfortunately he's not anymore. We took it for the contract. Shea Weber basically makes no real money anymore. They get him from Vegas, 4 years left, the UFA. Jacob Voracek, they just acquired an insured contract. $8 million is the cap hit. Let us not forget about who are some other former Coyotes who have never actually played. Pavel Datsyuk's trade a couple of years ago. Chris Pronger. So I mentioned those cap hits. Now I am going to actually get the total salary up for a second. Because if we go to those players, so Jacob Voracek makes $6.2 million. Let's not forget it's an insured contract, though. Shea Weber actually only makes $3 million. That who knows how much that has actually been paid this season. $1 million years after that. Andrew Ladd is only $4 million. Brian Little is around 4.7. Then it goes down to 3.7. Someone has done the math on this. It is nearly, this team is going to struggle to hit the floor of the cap next year. Okay? This is a team that is paying a large majority of its cap to players to not play for them. I cannot explain to people who do not know how the cap works how shady and bad for the league the Coyotes are right now. That they're hitting the cap floor, struggling to hit the cap floor while actually spending as little money as possible. And they couldn't get the best return for Chychrun because they wouldn't retain on a value contract to start. That's the state the Coyotes are in and that the league allowed to happen. Oh, but
Yeah.
you know what? We're going to doubt Shea Weber really being hurt after the finals, a guy who has not played since. But oh my God, the Coyotes can be the cheapest sons of guns in the world. We can't retain on a $4 million cap hit on an Olympic caliber player. And we can't maximize the return of the guy we sat for 2 weeks to protect our asset. His agent won't even go on Ottawa radio and admit that they did not get what they wanted. And then they try and say Chychrun wanted that, where you already wanted to trade him. What?
Yeah, I would have wanted out if I was sitting for 2 weeks. I don't understand. Yeah, honestly, the Coyotes, it's just they could do everything left and right, and I won't understand because that amount of money going to non-players at this point, and then it's just weird. Like, why was there no like, okay, let's come to an agreement, let's come to the middle ground with Jacob Chychrun when really, like, I think they just shot themselves in the foot with this because best case scenario for them is that second becoming another first, which I really doubt was going to happen. Okay, yeah, but best case scenario. And still at that point, it's like, hey, was that really like the best you can do for Jacob Chychrun, like on the Coyotes standpoint from things? Because again, like it just felt like the flurry of trades happening, they held on way too long still. They still held on way too long. The demands they had and the conditions they had on the salary retention, on where he's gonna go, what they want to do with this, making him sit. It just affected the value so much. And I think it just becomes more of like that minor, not a minor trade, but it like a substantial trade at this point, but not the biggest trade of what we thought it was going to be, especially the way the deadline went, because it really was a buyer's market, and you couldn't do better than that.
Uh, I'm not disappointed in the Coyotes. I am disappointed in the league for allowing this to happen. This is a franchise that has already been ripped nonstop. I continue to say if they win Connor Bedard, he will not get to play in a full NHL rank until probably his second contract in this league. This is the state we're in. This is a state that the league is like, oh, this is fine. This is great. And all the other owners are enabling this and they're going to pay, the revenue sharing. And this is the way we are in the National Hockey League. This is our league. This is the sport that we love. And this is the way it gets treated by Arizona Coyotes ownership.
I'm just
Like, I
thinking like
just, come on.
I'm thinking of if I'm Logan Cooley right now in college,
I'm
am I signing early, am I signing out of school early?
Well, it's just it's not he won't even be there. I bet at the end of his career, it'll be the whole thing of like everyone gets traded because they keep rebuilding. I like when I heard people saying the Coyotes are going to be busy because they're rebuilding again. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why are we pointing this out? Dude, I thought they already were, and this was well known. Why are they're rebuilding again? Nothing
Was
was
that
built.
I guess like there's that one year they beat the Predators, and it's like, okay, yeah,
That
that's
was
a
the
success.
plan. Come on.
Yeah.
When was the last time the Coyotes finished outside the bottom 10 of the league?
I think what 2012. That's when they went to the Western Conference Finals.
I was in elementary school.
That was when
I'm 23, Daniel.
because of that season, Mike Smith made the Olympic team 2 years later.
I hate this league. I hate them so much. John Klingberg got traded. You mentioned the Ducks.
Eh.
They got a fourth in 2025. Andre Schuster probably making the
Coming
space
back to the
work.
Ducks,
I
by
was
the
gonna
way.
say, yeah, he was a Duck, wasn't he?
Like his third time on the team, I think.
And Nikita Nesterenko.
Yeah, it was the rights to him because he did it. He told the Wild he wasn't going to sign with them after his season was done with the NCAA.
I feel so bad for John Klingberg. Like, I wonder if his ex agent can sleep at night. Because what was it? He gave them the advice to not take the deal. Like, I
Yeah, it
think
was
just John Klingberg just cried himself to sleep every night, being like, what happened?
what could have been. And also, like the way he's seeing Dallas right now.
Oh God, yeah. Oh,
Like
that's such a
the what
shame.
ifs I think for him right now.
Good for Minnesota. I mean, listen, low key, they didn't have an amazing deadline. But I mean,
They kept the ball
whatever.
rolling with
Yeah,
the
I
deals,
mean,
I think.
Minnesota, man. Gotta love the Minnesota Wild.
I
The
mean, like
this
I trust them too with like what they've been able to do with defensemen. Like Goligoski built a bit more of rebuilding his value there. They still have quite a few guys that I think will help Klingberg not be as exposed as we truly saw him in Anaheim without a real defensive defenseman with him.
this is true. Now unfortunately, for some reason, the Control F or Command F on my Mac is being silly, but I found the trade. Dallas pick up Dylan Wells. I mean, it's to help with the deal. But the big thing is they get Max Domi and they give up a second in 2025 and the Anton Khudobin contract. Um, I mean, yeah. So Dodonov and Domi are their scoring wingers they wanted to add. It felt like they were really, really trying to get Meyer, and then it just didn't work out. And this is what their plan B. I'm surprised that Chicago moved Domi because it really seemed like he wanted to be there. But I guess he's putting up too many
Yeah.
points, and they're like, "Oh, we can't have this."
Yeah, he did really well of just another player too, rebuilding himself, signing there. And I think the Stars like what they saw. Maybe, just maybe he'll play above that salary still, still keep the momentum going. And I think there's no reason why he wouldn't. I think the same thing we said about John Klingberg going to Minnesota and being a bit more sheltered there. It's with Domi playing with better players, better playing in a better system now that we could actually see two things: a healthy Max Domi and a consistent Max Domi.
It's a real shame that Mark Wahlberg is a Dallas Stars fan, though. I mean, I don't want him. I don't want to
That was
see
a
him on my
random
Twitter.
snippet. That was so random.
Yeah, because they're friends. I was like, I don't. This is gross. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Jonathan Quick is a Vegas Golden Knight. Man, I feel horrible for Jonathan Quick. Two-time Cup champion, Conn Smythe, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Gets moved as a cap dump piece to Columbus and then flipped for a seventh and Michael Hutchinson. And now I want nothing more than an LA Vegas series where Jonathan Quick will carry Vegas past them because goalies and athletes are mental and he'll pull something out of his bag.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna use NHL 23 again, where the value's so low on a player, and then suddenly gets traded, and he's back to like from an 81 to an 85.
The morale, man, the morale.
Yeah, so maybe that will happen.
Just I feel bad. I really do feel bad for the dude, but
There were reports too, like he didn't want to play in Columbus, so he actually
yeah,
gets to a
he
team where
does.
they're they're competitive.
Yeah, you know what? Good for Columbus for fulfilling those wishes. I mean they're used to it too, probably being those guys being like, I don't want to be here. But yeah, I'm not rooting for LA anymore. Sorry, Phil. Love you, man, but no. For the first time in NHL history, brothers have been traded for each other.
That's hilarious.
Man, the Flames are like done. The Flames, I feel
Yeah, I know what
so
they're
bad
doing.
for
It's
them.
like we can't score. What do we do? Add another big body.
So, um, I feel bad for Troy Terry because I really wanted him to go to a good team, and he gets moved to Calgary. But anyway, the Flames trade
You
Brett
mean
Rich
did you say Troy Terry?
Stetcher, sorry,
Oh yes.
Stetcher,
Okay.
yeah. Um, so Calgary trade Brett Ritchie for Nick Ritchie to Arizona, and also Connor McKee is part of the deal, and the Flames also get Troy Stetcher. I
hmm
just wanted to mention the brothers got traded for each other, to be
Which is
honest with you.
hilarious. That happened in the NBA. The Lakers traded a bunch of picks, Kwame Brown, and the rights to Mark Gasol
Oh wow,
for Paul
really?
Gasol.
Oh,
Yes.
is that? Oh, that's the
Yeah.
move. That's the one that Stephen A. Smith got, like that everyone's seen of him. Really, that's that
Yeah, the
trade.
Kwame Brown trade.
No disrespect, but then he just completely disrespects the man.
Yeah.
Uh, well, by the way, we should probably mention this. Um, Listen, I think everyone's a fool if they don't think that Stephen A. Smith talking bad about the Rangers is bad for the game. Like, I know people are like, it's one man's opinion. That's the man. That is the ESPN is that man. Like, that
Mm.
was horrible to hear.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking, man. I'm like, like it's not good for the sport. So can we figure? I know he doesn't like hockey, but like, can you not bash it, dude? That's so disrespectful.
It's getting the
But
views, that's why. And
yeah, but he doesn't care about hockey enough to say that. Like, think about it. Like, he I'm sure there are times where he will say something, obviously, for because it
they'll
is
get
the
the
views.
clicks. Yeah.
But with hockey, I don't think he cares nearly enough about the audience, otherwise he talk about it more. I think it was just an offhanded thing of being like, oh, hockey. Like, I doubt he thought enough and cares enough about hockey to think I'm gonna piss off hockey fans. Like Max, this is not the first time a significant name in ESPN has ripped hockey too. Let's not forget when Max Kellerman did it a couple of years ago.
hmm
Everyone forgets about that because Max Kellerman got banished to the Shadow Realm. But um, stop! It's
Stop,
a
Steve.
good game, dude. It's fun. Like, listen, there's a lot wrong with it. I ripped the Coyotes, but like, it's a fun game. Ah, it's a shame. That's a real shame. Jacob Moran is a St. Louis Blue. I just hope he's good and he
Just
gets his
give him
bird.
the minutes to play. Give him the minutes.
Yeah, man, come on now. And finally, one of the sneaky moves at the deadline that could end up being pretty nice. Jordan Greenway is now a Buffalo Sabre.
Yeah, I
Um,
was surprised with this because I've talked about him so highly before of the prototypical scoring power forward, and there's a fine line between your development as one of the bigger players of are you going to be that what I said a prototypical power forward or you're going to become a grinder. And I think this year he was a bit more of a grinder and not really getting his money for the scoring anymore. And to give him a fresh start, to give him to a place where it's different now with Buffalo. I know I find with Buffalo it's just kind of what is the thing you always mention the land of lost toys.
uh, I don't know if I've ever said that, but if I
Okay, but
did,
I think in Buffalo you go there and you could rejuvenate things. Like we saw that with a Tage Thompson. We see that with an Alex Tuck, a Peyton Krebs. So I think in that right situation, Greenway can find his game again. And with the Wild, I think what I felt with them and also the other moves we mentioned they did is it's a no excuse type of year where you can't just keep relying on the whole Bill Guerin thing where it's like let's clean up the Paul Fenton mess. Let's just surprise people because at this point I think people are not surprised anymore with the Wild. You had to do something, and Greenway just didn't fit in that vision anymore.
um, I don't know how much longer Alex Tuck is out for, if he's back. But wasn't he week to week?
Yeah,
That's the guy whose spot that you can get, and obviously their head coach Buffalo's one.
former teammates.
Oh,
Yeah,
where?
in Minnesota.
Oh, God, I always forget Tuck was a Wild.
Yeah,
And yeah, to Vegas to keep Dumba. Man, that
yeah.
Dumba, where it still
He wasn't
wild.
traded. Yeah, he's gonna
Yeah,
be
that's
UFA.
wild. But yeah, Don Granado in Buffalo apparently likes the guy. I think he coached him too back in the day. I'm gonna guess in college.
I think
Is
so.
that the
Yeah,
Granado? Did he coach Wisconsin or is that a different? There's so many Granados.
yeah. Like Tony, Don,
We'll
Cam.
figure
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And anyway, where I think that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
Good episode.
overall, what would you rate? We'll include like the week leading up to the deadline, the 2 weeks. Let's just say. What do you rate the deadline out of 10 this year?
I see like a 9.5, like a
Nine
or even
point.
a 10, like a 10, because it just gave us the headlines. It gave us a mix of what we said last year was missing in the NHL deadline. Is like we mentioned, like look at the NBA doing all these trades, and they blew the NBA trade deadline out of the water. Like this was amazing.
I agree with you. We were all worried about like, KD just got traded and we're gonna get what? And then the NHL GMs took it personally, and they
Yes,
were
they
like,
did.
just watch me. That's everything for us. We'll see you Wednesday. Alex may be here. Daniel may be here. I may be here.
Mm-hmm.
None of us may be here because that's just how it goes. Um. Oh God, who's your cup favorite after the deadline?
Oh man, I hate to say it's the Bruins, but
Yeah, same.
I hate to say it.
Yeah, I think we all kind of agree with that. You don't say the Bruins. I think you're just trying too hard to be cool. If it's the Bruins. Okay, is that everything?
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you next time.